Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we're diving deep into a terrifying Indonesian horror story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Our story began in a mountainous jungle where Wari, while on a picnic with his friends, accidentally released a demon trapped inside a bottle. This act cursed him, and slowly the demon began to possess his body. This demonic jinn possessed powers similar to a zombie. Anyone it bit and performed a ritual upon would transform into a demonic zombie just like it. Soon, many of the 27 students staying in the hostel began turning into these demonic zombies. In this dire situation, how would the remaining students survive? They couldn't escape, nor could they defeat these demons. To discover their fate, we delve into the full story titled RASUK, meaning possession. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. The story opened with a scene from a boys' hostel. Inside a room, a student was idly scrolling on his phone. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the sky, and the power went out, plunging everything into darkness. Along with the electricity, the network also disappeared, leaving the boy frustrated. Just then, he heard a groaning sound from behind. Turning to look, he saw someone standing in the dark. He called out, "Who's there?" but received no answer from the figure in the darkness. However, as the mysterious boy moved closer to the light, his hideous form was revealed, looking every bit like a terrifying zombie. The healthy student was utterly terrified by this attack and immediately started running, screaming for help, but there was no one around to assist him. He kept running until he stumbled into a room and hid under a bed, trembling with fear. Just then, we saw the zombie-like boy enter the room, and suddenly, he grabbed the head of the boy hiding under the bed. The boy thrashed about and blood splattered everywhere. The scene abruptly cut, and we were introduced to a group of friends, all residents of the boys' hostel. This group of 5 male friends was joined by 2 girls, Adil's sister Alia and Alia's best friend Fiza, who had driven them to the jungle for a picnic. They were all having a fantastic time at the picnic, and among them, Adil's friend Wari was particularly keen on taking photos. Everyone was enjoying a swim in the lake, while Fiza was busy changing her car's tire. Meanwhile, we saw a private car heading towards their hostel carrying a teacher named Nazim. By looking at Nazim's hand, it was clear he had recently been in an accident. Since it was semester break, the driver questioned why he was going to the college now, as there were likely no students there. Nazim offered no response to the driver's query. Elsewhere, Alia noticed that her brother Adil had a call from their mother. She took the phone to Adil, but he didn't want to speak to his mother at that moment, telling Alia he would call back later. Alia reminded him that there was no network at their hostel, but Adil countered that there was Wi-Fi and he would use that to speak to their mother. Accepting this, Alia answered their mother's call and spoke with her. As she was talking, Wari began taking her photos. It was quite clear that Wari liked Alia, a fact Alia was also aware of. Meanwhile, back at the hostel, a woman arrived to deliver food for the students. The security guard informed her that only a handful of students remained, as most had gone home for semester break. From their conversation, we learned that there was a village right behind the hostel. About a week prior, something terrible had happened there, causing several people to become possessed. Many had died in that incident, though the security guard didn't seem to take the woman's words very seriously. Back at the picnic, as prayer time arrived, Elham performed his prayers and Alia joined him. After their prayers, the two went to the food area, where everyone else was present except for Wari. He was wandering through the jungle, taking pictures. As he did so, he suddenly stumbled upon a small glass bottle on the jungle path. Its opening was wrapped with a red thread, and something was written on the bottle itself. Disregarding its ominous appearance, Wari unwrapped the bottle and opened it. Instantly, a smoky substance billowed out. Whispering sounds emanated from all directions, startling Wari so much that the bottle slipped from his hands and shattered. A black liquid oozed out along with a small, doll-like object. As he stared at it, taking photos, he suddenly heard someone call his name from behind, but there was no one there. Then the call came from another direction. Yet again, no one was present. Just then, his friends called out to him. Deciding not to dwell on the strange occurrences, he went to join them. And that's when we saw it. Right next to where Wari had broken the bottle, a tree bore strange black magic spells, surrounded by countless other bottles, suggesting a place of worship for some terrifying power. Meanwhile, back at the hostel, as the food delivery woman was leaving, Nazim arrived. Both the woman and the security guard were surprised to see him. Teacher Nazim went inside, looking for the warden, and the security guard's explanation gave us more insight into Nazim's situation. Nazim had been on leave since his accident and was supposed to still be on leave, which was why his return was so unexpected. Upon reaching the warden's room, it was revealed that the warden himself had called Nazim back to look after the students for a day as he had an emergency. The warden apologized to Nazim for this inconvenience. However, Nazim didn't mind. He wanted a change of scenery and wasn't upset about the situation. That night, a total of 27 students would be staying at the hostel, and Nazim was tasked with looking after them from the warden's room. When the warden asked him to lead the Maghrib prayers, as he had always done, Nazim suggested finding someone else. This revealed that, due to the accident, Nazim had turned away from God, a fact that saddened the warden. Nazim then went straight to his own room, where he became visibly distressed. He pulled out a photo of his wife and children from his pocket, a photo of his wife and 2 children. It was because of this accident that Nazim had lost his family, and he simply could not accept God's judgment. Meanwhile, Adil and his friends were late in their departure. Evening had fallen, and the warden had already left the hostel. The security guard had locked the main gate and gone somewhere else. Fiza arrived at the main gate with all the students, but seeing it locked, they were unsure how to get inside. Just then, one of their friends, Nick, had an idea. He told Fiza to drop them off near the main road, as there was a pocket gate connecting the hostel to the main road, allowing entry. After being dropped off, Adil said goodbye to his sister Aliyah and took some money from her. Their conversation revealed that Aliyah deeply cherished Adil. They were, in fact, twins, which explained their intense affection for each other. Fiza also suspected that Wari might like Aliyah, but Aliyah didn't pay much attention to her words. They all entered the hostel. Wari was the last one, and Adil initially blocked his entry. Adil directly asked Wari if he liked Aliyah. Wari in turn asked if that was a problem. Adil jokingly replied, "Of course it's a problem. You're about to become my brother-in-law." The 2 friends laughed as they entered. They were eager to avoid getting caught by the warden since it was semester break. They were certain no teachers would be in the hostel, and so they decided to enter directly past the teacher's room. They walked confidently inside. Then Wari heard his name being called from a dark room. He cautiously approached, but saw no one. He turned on his phone's flashlight to peer inside, yet still, no one was there. As he was about to leave, we clearly heard the voice call out again. Wari, however, didn't notice it and walked away. Adil, seeing Wari, so far behind, was surprised and asked him what was wrong, but Wari didn't share his strange experience with his friends. Laughing and joking, they finally reached their hostel room. But their amusement quickly turned to shock as they discovered teacher Nazim waiting for them. When they tried to make excuses, claiming they had been praying, Nazim produced a list. Only 7 students had attended prayers that day, and their names weren't among them. They knew they were caught. To make matters worse, Nazim found a gas lighter and cigarettes near their beds. Though they tried to deny it, there were no other students in the room. Everyone else was on semester break, so they had to face the punishment. Nazim assigned them the task of cleaning the washrooms. Reluctantly, the 5 friends started cleaning, chatting, and joking as they worked. That's when Adil noticed Wari seemed a bit distracted. When asked, Wari mentioned he felt a little feverish. Just then, 2 more students joined them. Meanwhile, we saw Nazim take the cigarette box and gas lighter to his own room, pondering over them when suddenly a flash of lightning struck and the transformer exploded, cutting off all electricity to the entire college. Darkness enveloped everything, and the college's Wi-Fi connection died. The college was in such a remote location that there was no network at all. Adil worried about how he would talk to his mother. Forgetting their worries, the other 4 continued working and joking, but Wari stood alone, and he suddenly began to hear that voice calling him repeatedly. Hearing it now, he started to feel unwell, his mind's eye filled with the images we had seen in the jungle, the black magic artifacts. As these visions swirled, he suddenly began to vomit, and blood streamed from his mouth. Hearing his distress, everyone rushed to him. Seeing Wari so sick, they carried him to a room and laid him on the bed. Adil noticed that Wari had a very high fever. His forehead was burning to the touch. They became extremely worried about his sudden illness, so Adil immediately left to find the teacher and get some medicine. Immediately after Adil left, Wari began to convulse as if something inside his body was taking over, beyond his control. Meanwhile, teacher Nazim had gone to the security guard to ask about the power outage. Since an electrician would need to be called, they wouldn't have electricity until tomorrow morning. This made Nazim a little worried. He instructed the guard to keep a close eye on the students and then went back inside, where he saw Adil in front of his room. When Adil told him about Wari's illness, Nazim suspected it was just a false excuse to escape chores, but Adil urged him to come along. At that moment, we saw Wari with black liquid oozing from his mouth. Niksam and Elham were struggling to hold him down. A large amount of the black liquid erupted from his mouth, and then he suddenly went quiet. As Elham cautiously approached him, Wari abruptly became aggressive. The 3 friends were terrified. His eyes had turned completely black, and he was behaving like a zombie. In this terrifying state, he lunged towards Elham. Elham was extremely scared. Just then, Adil and Nazim arrived. As soon as the light from Nazim's flashlight hit Wari's face, he fled. During Wari's attack, Nick had fallen and hit his head, knocking him unconscious. They carried him to Nazim's, or rather, the warden's room, and laid him down. Nazim then asked them to explain everything that had happened. Even after hearing their full account, Nazim still couldn't comprehend what was truly happening to Wari. With no electricity, there was no Wi-Fi or telephone service. However, they knew there was one specific spot in the entire college where network reception was possible. After learning about it, Nazim left with a deal to go to that spot, hoping to contact someone for help from outside. The other 3 students remained in the room, barricading the door. Meanwhile, Wari was far from calm. he found another student alone in the washroom and bit him. Then, using the victim's blood, Wari began to write the same spells on the student's face that were seen on the tree. Instantly, that boy also became possessed, transforming into another zombie just like Wari. Hearing the boy's screams, Nazim decided he had to investigate. He instructed Adil to reach the network spot and contact someone outside during this time. Meanwhile, the security guard also heard a noise from outside. Stepping out, he saw a student running in the distance. He wondered why students were still awake and went to check on them. On the other hand, Adil had reached the second floor. However, even there, he couldn't get any network signal on his phone. Nazim, meanwhile, had arrived at another student's room. Inside, he found two students lying bloody on their beds while two other students were savagely devouring another. The two on the bed began to convulse, and then one of the already transformed zombies attacked Nazim. Nazim started running, eventually hiding in the darkness, which caused the zombie to lose sight of him and leave. But then another zombie suddenly attacked Nazim. Nazim turned on the spotlight he was carrying, and the zombie couldn't tolerate the light at all, fleeing from it. Meanwhile, the security guard was still checking on students. Suddenly, he saw a student standing some distance away and approached him. As he placed a hand on the student's shoulder, that student attacked the security guard. At the same time, another student seeking refuge had reached the warden's room where Sam and Elham were with the unconscious Nick. Elham wanted to open the door, but Sam wouldn't let him. He suspected it might be a trick from Wari, and they didn't want to invite any danger. Besides, Nick, being unconscious, couldn't escape anyway. They were arguing about this when a zombie arrived and the student seeking refuge fled. Meanwhile, Adil entered one of the rooms on the second floor. As he held his phone out the window, he briefly got a network signal. At that moment, we saw Alaya driving home. She suddenly felt a strange unease and mentioned it to Fiza. Just then, her phone rang. It was Adil. But the network was so bad that Aliyah couldn't hear anything clearly. The only word she managed to catch from Adil was danger. As soon as she heard it, the call cut off. At that very moment, we saw someone standing behind Adil. However, when Adil turned around, startled by a sound, he saw no one. Then Wari suddenly attacked him. Adil fought desperately to escape Wari's grip, but Wari bit his hand. To free himself, Adil grabbed a sharp object nearby and stabbed it into Wari's head. Wari collapsed instantly. In the struggle, Adil's phone fell and completely shut off, preventing him from contacting Aliyah. So he left the room, but just as he exited, we saw Wari awaken once more, his eyes entirely black, having assumed a terrifying form. Meanwhile, Aliyah kept trying to call Adil, but his phone was off, which made Aliyah want to return to Adil's hostel. Fiza, however, thought Adil was just playing a prank, as he often did, and Aliyah was falling for it. But Aliyah knew her brother well. She could tell when he was joking and when he was truly in danger. So she insisted that Fiza turn the car around, and Fiza reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Nazim, hiding under a tree, saw Wari and all the other students who had already turned into zombies. They were standing there performing some kind of ritual, and Nazim realized then that this was no mere virus or contagious disease. Wari was clearly the leader of this sinister ritual. Adil returned to his remaining friends. Seeing the wound on his hand, Elham became worried and applied medicine to it. After learning about Wari's condition from Adil, they were all very concerned about him too. Just then, Nick regained consciousness. They were explaining the entire situation to Nick when we saw teacher Nazim stealthily approaching the room, when suddenly the security guard called out to him from behind. Nazim went to the room, and the security guard recounted his terrifying experience. A zombie had attacked him, and to escape, he had repeatedly hit it on the head until it was unconscious. He was deeply shaken by this near-death experience. He also told Nazim about the incident in the village behind the college, as mentioned by the food delivery woman. He felt the two incidents were eerily similar, which greatly worried Nazim. However, Nazim wanted to return to his room first so they could all figure out a way to escape with the other students. Meanwhile, in that room, the students, including Adil, were present. Sam was discussing how people were turning into zombies, wondering how Wari was recruiting so many to his side. He reasoned that it couldn't be an airborne virus, otherwise they would have been infected when Wari first became aggressive. So he asked Adil, "You were bitten by Wari, how are you feeling?" This question made Adil anxious because he hadn't thought about it until now. And that's when we saw Wari again and learned how this virus was truly spreading. It wasn't a zombie virus that would spread instantly with a bite. The bite only transferred a small amount of the black magic from one body to another. For full possession by the black magic, one needed to be near Wari and subjected to rituals. Wari began writing those same spells on the hostel walls using his own blood, just like the ones on the tree. At this same moment, Aliyah and Fiza had reached the hostel gate, only to find it locked. Inside, Adil was thinking that Aliyah should have arrived by now, assuming she heard his message. He believed he should go to the gate to open it for them, allowing Aliyah and Fiza to enter easily. However, Sam absolutely refused to go outside, unwilling to take the risk. Adil told him not to worry, saying he would go himself, and Elham decided to accompany him. The two of them cautiously and fearfully made their way to the security guard's room. Upon arriving, Adil remained outside while he instructed Elham to go inside and look for the keys. Elham searched, but couldn't find them anywhere. Suddenly, Adil started feeling unwell. The spell's influence was beginning to take hold of him, causing him to vomit blood. Seeing him so sick, Elham rushed to his side, telling him to come inside and rest. Adil then said he felt like he was becoming like Wari. Elham told him not to say such things. Just then, another zombie student rushed towards them, so they both quickly went inside and held their breath, trying to hide so the zombie wouldn't detect their presence. However, Adil told Elham that when Aliyah arrived, he should take Nick to the hospital without worrying about him. Before Elham could say anything else, Adil ran out of the room, heading in the opposite direction, hoping the zombie would follow him. And it did. Elham stood there, witnessing Adil's act of self-sacrifice for him. Meanwhile, Adil, running in the opposite direction, stumbled upon several more zombies. The zombies surrounded him, but after sniffing the spot where Wari had bitten him on his hand, they moved on, leaving Adil unharmed. Adil then knew for sure that he too would soon become like them, not just a zombie, but a demon, a shaitan. Meanwhile, Aliyah and Fiza had entered through the pocket gate. Nazim and the security guard were sitting, contemplating their next move, when the security guard suddenly remembered that the hostel had a generator which had been shut down and left unused long ago. Since these demons couldn't tolerate bright light, they decided to try and start the generator. They cautiously and stealthily made their way towards the generator room. At that moment, Aliyah and Fiza were in the middle of the field. They saw a blood-stained football, and the sight of the blood surprised them. Just then, a boy was standing near the goalpost. They asked him where Adil was. No sooner had they asked than the boy attacked them, Both tried to escape, but Aliyah fell. The boy was about to bite her when Fiza quickly shoved her bag into his face. As a result, the boy now attacked Fiza. Hearing their screams, Nazim and the security guard arrived. Using the spotlight in his hand, Nazim managed to drive the zombie away. Fiza's bag was with the zombie, but they didn't care about the bag and fled from there. Meanwhile, the demon within the boy began calling out to its other companions. After going a little further, Nazim asked Aliyah who she was. Aliyah explained that Adil had called her to warn her about the danger. When she inquired about Adil, Nazim said he should be in the warden's room. So the four of them headed towards the warden's room. At that moment, we saw Adil, who had reached the pocket gate, and even saw Aliyah's car outside. But because of the spells written on the wall, he was in a state where he could not shake off the demon's influence over him. Meanwhile, back in the room, Sam was thinking Elham might have abandoned them. Nick told him not to think like that. Just then, Nazim arrived with Aliyah and Fiza. Aliyah asked about Adil, and Sam said he had gone to the security guard's room for the keys. The security guard then revealed that he had the keys with him all along. Just then, Elham arrived. Aliyah asked Elham about Adil, but Elham couldn't answer. Finally, he revealed that Adil had become like Wari. Hearing this, Aliyah was completely devastated. She immediately tried to leave the room, but Fiza managed to calm her down, and Aliyah sat there crying. Suddenly, Sam started blaming Elham for everything. He believed that Adil's condition was a result of going outside. They would have been safe if they had stayed inside. Elham retorted that he hadn't even helped another student who was knocking on their door, pleading for help. He couldn't be selfish like Sam, who only thought of himself. An argument quickly escalated into a fight between them until the security guard intervened and stopped them. Elham asked where Fiza's car was. Fiza replied that it was in front of the pocket gate, but the car keys, which were in her bag, were now around the neck of a zombie boy. Hearing this, their last hope seemed to vanish. However, upon learning about the shutdown generator, Fiza declared that she could turn it on, but she would need petrol and some other supplies. Among them, only Aliyah had a phone, so Nazim decided they would split into separate teams. Fiza would go with the security guard to the generator room. Elham and Sam would go to retrieve the petrol and other necessary items. Nazim, meanwhile, would take Aliyah's phone to a high spot to find a network signal, but Aliyah didn't want to let Nazim take her phone, so she insisted on going with him. Nazim had no choice but to agree. Nick, being unwell, was told to stay inside. Meanwhile, Adil was still fighting against the demon. The demon couldn't fully take control of his body, but Adil was in immense pain. Just then, Adil saw Wari in front of him. Wari looked perfectly healthy and normal. Adil knelt before him, apologizing for not being able to protect him, and expressed his own suffering. Hearing this, Wari told him that if he chose Wari's path, he wouldn't have to endure this pain anymore. Only Wari could alleviate his suffering. The moment these words were uttered, Adil surrendered himself. It was then that we saw Wari's true form. He drew the same spells on Adil's face with his own blood and chanted them loudly, and this time, Adil also became possessed by the demon. Meanwhile, the security guard and Fiza had, with great difficulty, reached the generator. They pulled down the shutter and made their way to the generator. However, it couldn't be turned on without petrol and the other necessary items. So, the security guard said he would wait outside for Elham and Sam while Fiza stayed inside. We then saw Elham and Sam. Sam was keeping watch outside while Elham gathered all the supplies. Suddenly, Sam saw two students possessed by demons charging towards them. In that moment, he committed an incredibly selfish act. He didn't say a word to Elham. Instead, he quietly snuck away. When Elham finished gathering the supplies and came outside, he was shocked. Sam was gone, replaced by the two zombies. He desperately tried to run and escape them. At that very moment, Sam was hiding in a corner of the staircase, holding the spotlight. He could have easily helped Elham with the spotlight, but instead, he chose a different path and went to Nick. There, he told Nick that Elham was already dead, claiming he had seen it with his own eyes. He insisted they couldn't wait there. He urged Nick to trust him and for the two of them to go to the secret entrance, the pocket gate. If they could just get out of this area, they would be safe. The unwell Nick wanted to wait for the others, but Sam kept misleading him. Meanwhile, Aaliyah and Nazim were also confronted by many zombies. They managed to escape them and went upstairs. On the upper floor, they desperately searched for a network signal. In various locations, there was no network anywhere. Suddenly, a groaning sound was heard. They looked up and saw Adil standing right in front of them. As Aaliyah started to approach Adil, Nazim stopped her, asking Adil if he was okay. But Aaliyah couldn't control herself. She rushed towards Adil, and he immediately attacked both of them. He was now completely under the demon's control. Nazim struggled desperately to defend himself from Adil, who threw Nazim down and was about to bite him. Just then, Aaliyah grabbed Adil from behind. Adil turned fiercely towards Aaliyah. Aaliyah began calling out Adil's name, but Adil seized her by the throat. Aaliyah continued repeating her name, and because of this, Adil regained consciousness for a brief moment. He uttered Aaliyah's name. Perhaps it was the strong connection between the twin siblings that made this possible. Adil, with great difficulty, managed to control his hand. He then held Aaliyah's hand and made her promise to take care of their parents in his absence. Aaliyah also held Adil's hand and promised, telling him to fight the demon, but Adil couldn't. The spells were still swirling in his mind, and to save Aaliyah, he jumped down from that high spot. Aaliyah screamed from above. Immediately, more possessed students arrived. Seeing Aaliyah and Nazim upstairs, they began to climb up to attack them. There were many of them. Nazim barely managed to pull Aaliyah into a room to hide. The classroom door had no lock. At one point, Aaliyah accidentally made a small noise, and the possessed students rushed to the door, ready to attack her. Nazim then led Aaliyah out through another door. Meanwhile, we saw Sam and Nick, who had reached a tree. In front of them was a vast field, and on the other side of it, the pocket gate. To get there, they decided to count to 3 and then run. If they could make it past the pocket gate, they would be safe. Nick agreed to Sam's plan. As soon as Sam counted 1, 2, 3, Nick started running. But Sam didn't run. He had merely used Nick as a decoy. Zombies immediately chased after Nick. All the surrounding zombies attacked Nick, and Sam tried to use this opportunity to escape to the pocket gate. Poor Nick pleaded for Sam's help, but Sam was already running away. He had his spotlight, but after running a short distance, he fell. The two zombies behind him attacked him. Although he initially managed to fend them off with the spotlight, he couldn't last long because the spotlight went out. You know what they say, if you do bad to others, bad things will surely happen to you. And that's exactly what happened to Sam. He had been selfish from the very beginning, and in the end, he became a victim of the possessed students. Because of him, poor Nick also died. Meanwhile, Nazim had hidden Aaliyah in a room. One of the possessed students pursuing them entered the room, but he couldn't see them. They narrowly escaped this time. Elham, on the other hand, had run with the supplies and reached the generator room. where Fiza and the security guard were waiting for him. Seeing so many zombies behind Elham, the security guard stepped forward to protect him. Some zombies attacked them as well. Elham and Fiza managed to pull down the shutter. A zombie tried repeatedly to attack them there, but they somehow pushed it back outside. However, in doing so, the security guard was left outside. There was no way to save him. He had voluntarily stepped into the midst of the zombies to save Elham, and that's how the security guard died. Fiza wasted no more time and rushed to turn on the generator. Outside their shutter, the possessed students were relentlessly attacking. Meanwhile, an idea sparked in Nazim's mind. He took Aaliyah out of the room and headed towards the hostel kitchen. As he was trying to open the door there, several possessed students suddenly spotted them. Many zombie-like possessed students appeared and began to approach them, ready to attack. Nazim desperately tried to unlock the door and get inside. In the process, a student bit Nazim's hand. Nazim and Aaliyah managed to get inside, but Nazim now had a bite wound, meaning he knew exactly what was coming. Once inside, they used a freezer to block the door, but the zombies tried to break the window. Both Nazim and Aaliyah were incredibly worried. Then something strange happened. All the possessed students suddenly became completely still. Fiza and Elham also noticed this eerie calm, but Fiza didn't waste time on it and continued working on fixing the generator. Inside, Aaliyah and Nazim were waiting for the generator to start. Just then, Wari appeared at the window of their room. This was why all the students had suddenly gone quiet. He began calling Nazim's name. Hearing this, Nazim approached the window. Wari told him to follow him, saying that if Nazim followed, his suffering would diminish. Nazim asked if Wari knew about his pain, and Wari responded that he knew everything: the loss of his children, the accident. He questioned what sin Nazim had committed to deserve such suffering. Through these words, the demon within Wari was trying to weaken Nazim's faith, which was already fragile due to the accident. Nazim even told Aaliyah about the accident that took his wife and 2 children. He had been out with his family to surprise them when a truck suddenly collided with their car. Recalling the incident, Nazim became incredibly emotional. Just then he saw Sarah, his wife, standing right in front of him. Seeing her, he rushed towards her, but Aaliyah saw no one there. This was all a trick of the demon, manipulating Nazim through Sarah, promising him eternal peace with his children in the afterlife if he joined them. Nazim fell for the manipulation and touched Sarah's hand. Immediately, Sarah transformed into a terrifying form and attacked him. Nazim was terrified and screamed. Wari, meanwhile, kept chanting the spells, causing Nazim immense pain. Since one of the demonic students had already bitten him earlier, the demon was now able to convert him into one of its followers. Nazim understood this, and that's why he desperately tried to open a window at the back of the kitchen. At Wari's signal, the zombies resumed their attempts to break down the door. With great effort, Nazim finally managed to open the back window. He told Aaliyah to escape and flee from there. Aaliyah asked why Nazim wouldn't go with him. Nazim explained that the demon would soon possess him too. He reminded Aaliyah of the promise Adil had made her keep to take care of their parents and urged her to leave. Aaliyah complied, climbing out the window, and teacher Nazim immediately sealed the window from the inside. Meanwhile, despite 1,000 attempts, Fiza still couldn't get the generator to start. She became incredibly frustrated and sat there crying. The possessed students were pounding on the door, from both sides, but Nazim still hadn't given up hope. Being in the kitchen, he decided that if he was going to die, he would take all the possessed students with him. So he opened the gas pipelines. He had realized that since spotlights harmed these demons, fire would surely be able to destroy them. As he opened the gas valves, he simultaneously recited Ayatul Kursi, surrendering himself to Almighty Allah. He sat on a chair, looking at the family photo in his pocket. He was mentally preparing himself. Just then, the possessed students broke down the door and rushed inside. Nazim sat calmly before them. They thrashed about until they suddenly became still, for Wari himself had arrived. Nazim then looked at Wari, pulled out the gas lighter he had. Before the demon within Wari could react, Nazim ignited the gas lighter. This caused a massive explosion, setting the entire place ablaze. And Wari, along with all the possessed students, perished in the fire. Amidst all this, after much effort, Fiza finally managed to start the generator. However, since Wari was already dead, the possessed students outside also thrashed on the ground and then lay still, the demons within them pacified. Aliyah stood watching the burning building, feeling a deep sadness for Nazim. The next morning, rescue workers arrived at the scene. News reports stated that more than 20 people, mostly students, had died in the fire at the hostel. 3 survivors were found and 1 person was rescued, injured from the burning room. And this individual was none other than Wari himself, as we soon discovered from the scene in the hospital. He suddenly opened his eyes, which were completely black. Meanwhile, no one believed the accounts of the survivors. Aliyah, Fiza, and Elham. And with that terrifying ending, our story concludes. I hope you enjoyed this chilling tale. If you did, please don't forget to like and comment. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe. And to get updates on all our videos, join our channel now. You'll find the link in the comment box. Thank you so much for watching this video.